fits you like a glove. I'm your love, like a glove. I'm your love. If you fly through the sky, I will fly nearby. If you fall from the sky, I will glide by your side. So wherever we go, even when we're like foes, we are friends, loving friends through the end. Beautiful.
Oh. Okay, we're on.
Wow.
Can you tell our audience what we're doing for them and us? Yes.
Oh. Well, I think the song that we have planned at the end is fitting, which just we were fortunate to stumble across that as we stumbled into the studio today. One of your friends just started singing lots of beautiful songs. Very brave. I love that. So she chose the song My Funny Valentine, and it just reminds me of here we are telling love stories, which are healing stories. It has been for me and for you too.
I hope so.
Uh-huh.
I hope when I say it tonight it'll be healing.
Yes, yeah, and that's a real gift of being able to tell a story when you can tell it, when it's actually healing, not just entertaining.
Yes, this is this is serious, Scott. We're not here just to entertain you. If you're not healed after this show, feel free to write Scott and ask for a refund.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so it also, I guess we can talk more about that later, but there's a lot of ways that we've been learning how stories actually also can help reconnect humans, I think, to the earth. And how in our times that's actually in some ways vital to helping the earth and being aware of it. David Abram, that we had read in his book Becoming Animal, had talked about, he actually feels that telling oral stories is vital to actually helping save the planet. So that also feels wonderful to have this chance to an opportunity to actually do that and share how it could be helpful. So this is a love story of a certain sort, but it might not be what one traditionally thinks of as a love story. This is about having no love. And you, actually, often was embarrassed about this story until I actually told it for the first time a while back, which I hadn't shared with anyone. And here I am sharing it with a lot of people in the audience. So that's interesting.
So you were embarrassed by it before you told anyone?
Yes.
And somehow telling it, I can identify with that, telling it and people liking the story helped you not be embarrassed?
Yes, it actually helped switch it from feeling really embarrassed and maybe pathetic to recognizing the human quality and how it could actually be valuable.
So it was a very healing story for you to tell.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So this story takes place when I was 27, and I actually just recently sold a car to a woman who is about 27, and she's living in Colorado. And so it's interesting that this is really what happened. I really did just recently sell a car to a woman who's 27 in Colorado, but this story takes place about 20 years ago, and I had come back out here from Colorado to New Hampshire, and I had decided to house sit for my mother and stepfather who were going on a sailing trip for a year, and I was glad to be coming back to house sit for them because I had just broken up with my boyfriend and thought getting out of town would be a good thing to do. So I went to New Hampshire and I got a job. It was not a very happy time in my life. My father had gotten me a job at a hunting and fishing store, and moving from where I felt I was very progressive in Boulder, Colorado, and had taken on being a vegetarian and feeling proud about that. I did take this job at this hunting and fishing store because they had a photography department. The experience, however, didn't feel very exciting to be there. So people were buying crayfish and worms, and there was someone selling guns actually there as well. And I had been there for 6 months of the year that I was house sitting, and I didn't have any friends there. Actually all my friends had left the area, and I had a friend out in Wyoming that I decided I was going to go visit. And so I found myself out there having rented a car in Denver and driving the 6-hour drive from Denver Airport to the Grand Tetons. And I found myself in the middle of this drive suddenly at a standstill. And it actually was in the middle of a snowstorm, and I had it in my mind. I felt like I had never loved, or I wasn't sure if I had loved anyone before.
And why then did you think this?
I think that, well, for one thing, I had passed an area, a rock climbing area, where I had realized with the boyfriend that I had broken up with that I didn't want to be with him anymore. And this was before cell phone use, so my parents were sailing for the year and they weren't keeping in very good touch. And it was a very lonely time. And it's interesting because before I told the story, I didn't realize maybe all the factors that went into that. That looking back, it makes a lot of sense maybe why I was feeling that way. And at the time, not having told the story, I didn't realize that. So, yeah. So I pulled the car over, and I got in the back seat. I felt like I needed to really figure this out, and I went back and thought a lot about it. And
you're lying down in the back seat, or?
I'm lying down in the back seat.
Isn't it like cold?
It's not, I don't think it was cold in the car. It might have gotten cold fast eventually, but it wasn't maybe the smartest thing to do, because this was a snowstorm, and in Wyoming, you honestly can drive 2 hours before coming to a gas station, or it honestly is large expanse, and the wind can really blow across the long highways because it's cattle country, and there aren't trees to protect the road. It really blows, and there's drifts. So getting there was important, to get there and probably not stop to do so. So anyways, it just was interesting that this suddenly became so important to decide. And so I did, and
important to decide because?
Well, important not to decide, important to determine if I had ever loved anyone before. Because I felt like, well, maybe I haven't loved anyone before.
And somehow you had to know at that time.
Yeah, somehow before moving on in this trip,